how concerned legitimately are Hong Kongers right now by the prospect of this national security law, given that we know in the interests of national security, this is used in the mainland for a variety of different things, including the detainment of foreigners, including, arresting locals for short selling, for rumour mongering, for example. So isn't there a real concern that Hong Kong's institutions and Hong Kong people and foreign investors are looking to be undermined if this goes through?
No, I don't think so, because in the first paragraph, first article of the draft decision, which is before the for the National People's Congress, it is stated that the Central People's Government will unswervingly, fully and faithfully implement the principles of one country, two systems, Hong Kong people governing Hong Kong, and a high degree of autonomy. Now, which country does not have laws concerning protection for the protection of national security? I think in the States they have, in Britain they have, and it is natural that there should be national security law. Now, in Hong Kong, the rights and the freedom of citizens are well protected by the Basic Law, as well as our Hong Kong Bill of Rights Ordinance. So when investors and business people consider where to put their investment, where to do the business, they need a stable condition. They need a stable society. Now, at the moment, since 2019, there has been riots, there has been demonstration, people throwing, the rioters throwing petrol bombs and destroy the MTR machines and so on. So that is not a good business environment. We hope that with the enactment of this new law, which Hong Kong cannot do by itself, the atmosphere, the environment for doing business and investments would be improved.
But how does it even sit alongside Article 23, right? Because Article 23 suggests that, or says that Hong Kong has to put through its own security law. So how does Beijing coming in and pushing through essentially by decree, I imagine that's how it's going to happen, sit alongside Article 23? Because that also suggests that Article 23 still needs to be put forth as well.
Article 23 does not prescribe all the obligations Hong Kong has for national security. As you know, different laws are required at different situations and at different times. So, in enacting the Basic Law, at that time, the Article 23 only took care of the traditional security, national security issues. But that was 30 years ago. Now, the protection of national security is the responsibility of Central People's Government. It must, from time to time, see what is necessary and make decisions for that. It is entirely outside the autonomy of Hong Kong. Article 23 provides for some offences which might affect national security, but it's not all. So the Central People's Government is in a position and has the constitutional power to prescribe from time to time what is necessary to be done, legislation, enforcement, and so on, for the protection of national security.
So did the protest movement, in a way, accelerate Beijing's actions when it comes to the national security law, something that protesters have called the nuclear option, in your view?
Yes, if you look at it, I think you must have followed what's happening in Hong Kong since June last year. You can see that there have been riotous activities almost every weekend, and people have got hurt, one even killed, and there has been disruption of our public buildings and institutions. For example, the Legislative Council building. I mean, it's still undergoing repair. So it's not possible for economy and business to operate under such a situation. We must have a stable society. We must preserve law and order.
And in doing so, Beijing says that this would affect very few people. What happens to those potentially arrested then? Would they still be protected under Hong Kong law as well?
Certainly. The basic law is our constitutional order. In Chapter 3, it protects all the rights of freedom of expression, demonstration, the procession, and expression of opinion, and so on. That would remain. Now, you see, even in the explanatory memorandum presented to the National People's Congress by Mr. Wang Chun, the vice chairman of the NPCSC, he explained the basic principles which NPCSC must follow in acting the proposed legislation. And one of the principles is that it must substantially safeguard the legitimate rights and interests of Hong Kong residents. The national security law of the PRC also provides that if the enforcement of the law should restrict people's rights and freedoms, such restrictions must be necessary for the protection of national security. Now, this is very similar to the Hong Kong law as provided for in our Bill of Rights Ordinance. That is, any restriction on such rights must be prescribed by law and must be necessary for the protection of inter alia national security, and it must comply with the proportionality test, which you are familiar with. So the rights and freedom of the Hong Kong people will not be affected by the national security law unless they infringed the law regarding to secession, subversion, the connection with foreign forces, foreign powers, and regarding the carry on terrorist activities. So those the rights and freedom remain intact.
Elsie, we spoke with Emily Lau yesterday, the former Democratic Party chairperson in Hong Kong. I just want you to take a listen to what she had to say.
The international community will come up and tell Beijing, tell the Carrie Lam administration to calm down and not to bulldoze things over the people. The people, by and large, are not violent. They want a dialogue. They want to talk. They want the government to come out and give some concessions, and which is something we cannot get. And that's why we keep seeing these scenes of very violent clashes, and it makes our blood boil.
So, Elsie, Emily wanted to make the point.
And also, there is a chance for people to express their views, because that is why the decision provides for a two-step measure. Firstly, people will understand what the principle, what are the main issues in this decision, and legislation will come in the second step. So, in the meantime, people can express their views and present the views to the National People's Congress, the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress, and as to what should be included in the new legislation. There will be chances for them to do that. But instead, what did she say? She said that
so if this national security law...
What?
If this law is passed through by decree, through the annex, doesn't this open the floodgates for other laws that Beijing deems to be necessary for Hong Kong to be passed through in this way as well, overriding the parliament, overriding essentially what was promised as part of one country, two systems?
No, that's the misunderstanding, because only laws relating to defense and foreign affairs and matters outside the autonomy of Hong Kong which can be included in Annex 3, in other words, could be applicable in Hong Kong. And national security is certainly outside the autonomy of Hong Kong.
So, Elsie, is this national security law still worth it if, because of this, Hong Kong were to lose Washington's special trading status?
Well, that would be for mutual, that operates mutually. I hope that Washington will consider that carefully.
So do you expect the United States then to take as aggressive measures as they've been already discussed? And we are hearing that we could even see sanctions against Chinese officials.
We accept that the United States might do whatever it wants, but I think they should consider it carefully because it operates against the interests of both sides.
That would hurt the Hong Kong people and the Hong Kong economy,
as well as the U.S. economy and U.S. people.
Elsie, we're expecting huge crowds in Hong Kong again. This is clearly something that is distressing large parts of the population. What do you say to those people, that are actually concerned about judicial independence, that are actually concerned about the threat to, the institutional legitimacy of the city? And is Beijing really willing to trade, the future of Hong Kong as a financial hub, as a viable, tourism as well as financial centre in order to gain this control?
I'll say that the decision does not affect the judicial independence, which is well protected under our law, because the basic law provides that they should, the judges should administer justice without fear or favor, and nobody should interfere with that. And that is not only the basic law, but also it's well entrenched by our judicial system. That the protection of tenure of office. Our judges are appointed through the recommendation of an independent judicial recommendation committee, and they cannot be removed unless they are unable to carry out the duties or they commit serious offense, serious mistakes. Now, even in such case, it's not for the chief executive to dismiss them. It would be for a panel of the disciplinary committee comprising 3 judges to look into the case to see whether it's justified, and then make recommendation for his or her removal. So our judges can carry out their judicial oath of dealing with cases seriously and justly and faithfully. So I don't think that would affect our judicial system at all, because that is protected by our constitutional order. And also, with regard to the Hong Kong's position as an economic and the financial hub, I think the most important thing is you must have law and order in a city in order to allow people to carry on economic activities, and also for foreign investors to invest in Hong Kong. So unless we have law and order restored, unless there would not be any subversive activities going on in Hong Kong, there would not be any foreign interference in Hong Kong, then I think we could move on. Whatever is lost will be gained. We have gone through many storms, but on each occasion we stood up stronger than before.
Elsie, so I'm really curious. If you're a student protester, for example, or if you're a Hong Kong bookseller who's carrying, perhaps controversial, politically sensitive titles, these areas of the bill are so broad, subvergent. What does that mean? If you're arrested for doing one of these things that are considered to be politically subversive by Beijing, are you then protected under mainland law or Hong Kong law?
I think new law will prescribe and define what exactly are those offences, and it will be presumptive for me to say now what it is, what will be prohibited and what is not. But I think for the past 23 years, we have people carrying on business, banishing the Communist Party, and carrying on proceedings to commemorate the 4th of June. For the past 23 years without any interference. So I don't think that those rights and freedom would be taken away. But of course, if those acts, like a chanting slogan or carrying on the subversive acts, which would coupled with other activities, for example, organizing people to attack the Legislative Council and so on. Now, those acts should be prohibited because there must be law and order in the city.
So, to that point, why not spell out what this law means? Why all the secrecy with such few people really knowing what it entails? No,
we haven't started the legislative process. It's just a decision directing how the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress should enact the law. It is first step, and there will be plenty of opportunity for people to express their views.
But in that sense, given the lack of transparency of what could come out of the National People's Congress, wouldn't this also go against the free market ideals that Hong Kong has been based on? How will really investors around the world trust that the rule of law is being followed in Hong Kong when you really don't know the outcomes of some of these very important decisions?
That is why the decision has provided for two steps. The first is to spell the principles so people know what it is. It is before the enactment of the law. There is already a decision spelling out all the principles, including that safeguarding the people's rights and so on. And then when it comes to legislation, all this would be taken into consideration. You are commenting on something which is not in existence yet, and that is difficult. And we cannot presume that the law come out will penalize the Hong Kong people.
Elsie, there's real concerns about the Hong Kong economy that has suffered not just from the coronavirus, but also, as you've been detailing, months of protests. Now there's increasing concern that this national security law will be undermining the functioning of the capital and financial markets. So if you're a short seller who gets into trouble for placing short bets in Hong Kong, are you now going to have to face up to the wrath of Beijing? Will Hong Kong law protect that short seller? And, what do you say to investors and international institutions that are legitimately concerned about examples like this?
First of all, I don't think it's established that those people have done anything subversive on creating secession in Hong Kong, but the acts were not carried out in Hong Kong. They were prosecuted for offences.
But that's the kind of thing that comes
in the mainland, not in Hong Kong.
Undermining the authority in China.
No. The action is taken in mainland China. So if you carry out activities over there, you should be governed by the law of the mainland. So if they carry on business in Hong Kong, and if they do not infringe the law, there's nothing to be frightened of. The law is aimed at a very small number of people who try to carry out successive and subversive activities in Hong Kong, or join with foreign forces to do so. And if they carry on terrorist acts like throwing petrol bombs and so on, don't you think that they should be punished?